disregard any undeserved compliments.
By the way, there. Okay, nothing here, nothing here. Okay, if we go here, make a little rat man again. Unread. No idea what that means. Where are we? Oh, yeah, right here. Bingo. Let's see. I'm gonna check every elevator room. I'm gonna check every elevator room. I'm gonna check like every space in the whole room. Alright. Hello everybody, and welcome back to another Portal 2 video. So, if you remember, last time we finished the campaign. The game load up. That's weird. But today, we'll be doing developer commentary. Commentary node contain audio commentary by the Valve development team. Starts off the node. Aim and enable the icon press the button with commentary mode cannot save progress. Alright. There's a lot here. Let's start with confidence. Let's start with co-op confidence building. Let's start with that. This is the first thing on the list here. This is not playing through the actual co-op though. This is just doing developer commentary.
Did you notice I didn't even stay to the end of your last test? I was confident you could finish. Do you know where I was? I was outside watching some deer frolic. You don't even care about the outside, do you?
I do. Okay, that's interesting. I really need to watch the co-op mode so I can know exactly where that might go. Anyway, here we go.
In our first implementation, gestures were automatically selected based on the player's context. For example, blue might do a special gesture when standing on a floor button. Players became bored of seeing these gestures so quickly that they stopped using them before discovering any of the special context. Because of this, we decided to give players control of gestures as a way to express themselves, but when shown the full set from the start, they were overwhelmed by all the choices. By awarding gestures as the game progresses, we allow players to familiarize themselves with each gesture in turn. Leaving visible empty slots in the gesture wheel lets players anticipate that they'll be rewarded with cool new gestures as they progress. The gesture wheel provides quick access so that players can feel comfortable tossing out a gesture during downtime, letting them pick the perfect moment to share a high five.
Cool. Okay. I'll figure out how to get up there. Oh yeah. Gotta do this. I know my Portal 2. Alright, let's look into this one.
We have a taunt where one robot steals the other's core. When implemented, it was the only taunt that required one person to initiate. Because of this, we were afraid that it would be used for griefing. We were in the process of rethinking our approach when early playtesters rated this as their favorite taunt. It was also the most used team taunt because it only required one player to initiate and was easier to use than the others. We ended up changing all of the other team taunts to emulate the way stealing the core works.
Okay, that was a cool thing right there. Let's look into this one.
Airlocks were introduced mainly as a way to allow players to focus on individual puzzles. In some of our early investigations, areas contained puzzles that were meant to be solved as a group, as well as others that were for individual solution. But we found that if players could move freely between them, they logically assumed that the individual puzzles were part of one big puzzle. This had bad results. For clarity, we created these airlock-like spawn rooms that act as checkpoints between puzzles. Once both players entered the airlock, we lock off access.
Alright. There. Well, let's just look at this one first.
In Left 4 Dead 2, we authored simple, fogged, black versions of the world as monolithic models to avoid the CPU overhead of rendering the world again for water reflections. This worked well for the Left 4 Dead 2 outdoor environments where most light comes from the sky. But Portal 2 is almost entirely indoors, so the color and value of the world geometry is apparent in the water reflections. Since the Portal 2 world geometry is relatively simple, we automatically build a version of the world geometry that has a single texture that combines both lighting and surface shading, along with another texture that has just surface shading. The latter texture is used when rendering dynamic lights. These textures are at the same spatial resolution as the light maps and get packed into a single large atlas texture per level. Drawing this simple world imposter takes very little CPU time, which was a limited resource on Portal 2 due to the many portal views, split-screen views, and water reflection views that we needed to render. We initially planned on using the world imposters only for water reflection rendering, but we ended up using it to improve the performance in split-screen mode, where it is used for rendering distant portals and portals that are 2 levels deep. We also used the world imposters to render water in full-screen co-op mode to give us some performance overhead, since the co-op mode has more portal views to render than single-player mode.
Okay, so if I do this... Wait, what? Okay, that was weird. What if I do it with the orange? What would happen then? Oh wait. I'm such a dummy, I didn't do this. Duh. Okay.
Normally in games when players die, they see this as a big failure. But in Portal, death is a normal part of the puzzle-solving experience. In co-op, death not only happens more frequently, but it can happen at the hands of your partner, purely accidentally, of course. We felt it was important to not only make death no big deal, but to make it fun. Early on, we tried some elaborate death animations, such as showing your robot slowly getting crushed under a giant crusher. These were awesome to watch, but they quickly became repetitive. Also, after a very short while, players grew afraid to take risks. The fear of having to wait a long time before trying again prevented them from simply playing and experimenting in a spirit of fun. We had to find the right balance where death was quick enough to be a non-penalty and elaborate enough to be visceral and satisfying, a fun payoff for creative play.
Gotcha. Okay. Anything else? Yep. What do we have in here?
We noticed that after playtesters had solved a difficult puzzle together, they'd sometimes pause before funneling through the exit door to repeatedly jump up and down in excitement. We realized that these meeting places would be the perfect time to allow players to high-five each other and celebrate their victory in style. Our first interface attempt had one player initiate a high-five by holding their hand up and waiting. The other player could join in by selecting the same gesture. If they were standing in the correct positions relative to each other, they'd pull off a high-five. But learning the correct place to stand was too difficult, so we decided to automatically move the bots into the correct position for the high-five. Sometimes, however, the player who wanted to high-five would be left hanging as the other player ran ahead without accepting. Increasing the time that the initiator waited with his hand up gave the other player time to return and accept. But being frozen into place for more than a few seconds was too frustrating. So finally, we made players auto-accept the team gestures. Now when the mood strikes either player, the game always ensures a successful celebration.
Cool. I guess. What's next? Okay. Oh, we have a lot of commentary notes here.
Early on, we realized that trying to tell your partner where to go, where to look, or where to place a portal was going to be really hard. Even with voice chat, saying "over there" doesn't give enough information to your partner within the 3D space. Players kept wanting to get up and point directly at their partner's screen. We developed the ping tool to address this problem. Because the ping tool was so important, we decided to train players in its use before we did anything else. We held back on the vast majority of player actions and let the players focus entirely on the ping tool. This is why the co-op bots start separated in a tube, without even the ability to walk or shoot a portal.
Cool. What's next? That. And then. Yeah, well, I mean. We do this. Actually, wait, I want to do something weird. I feel like the movie. Oh. Alright. And now we do this. Okay, so there's still this one. With that one. And that one is by the exit. Okay, let's do it.
Several puzzles in the game require the players to take on distinct, intertwined roles. We called these asymmetric chambers Truss puzzles, because one player is often placing their life in the hands of the other. When one player accidentally kills the other, it almost always ends in laughter. So much laughter that we sometimes had to question if it really was a legitimate accident. These puzzles also require players to stay in constant communication, which naturally leads to some great moments of cooperative bonding. While some teams found these stressful, for many partners, these puzzles were their favorite type. But everyone agreed that they added much needed variety and a nice change of pace. And by swapping roles, each player can get an entirely different experience within the exact same puzzle.
Cool. How would I get over there? How do I get over there? Maybe I don't. Okay.
Something that really surprised us was how often playtesters stated that they loved the basic experience of handing off a cube to their partner. Players didn't expect such a fundamental physical interaction to just work in a game. Before trying it for the first time, they would discuss their plan as if it were some unique or special new game mechanic. When it just worked, they were overjoyed.
Gotcha. There's that one up there, which I do know how to do that. Just like I did. Bam.
Most players don't realize that the ping tool is context sensitive. When they're playing voice enabled, players usually rely on the look portion of the ping tool. Without voice, icons such as press the button or stand here become much more important.
Okay. Alright then, that's that. Oh, that's it. Okay, well, that is, what was that? That was confidence building. There's still the hub, security room. Then there's, you know, every single one of the chapters. And there's also credits as well. But yeah, that was confidence building. The hub, the next one. I feel like we should get that for next time. Or should we do the co-op stuff all in this video? And then do each chapter as themselves. I think that's what we'll do. Let's go with the hub. Let's do the hub. We'll do all the co-op stuff in this video, and then after that... Alright, so this is the hub. It's probably not gonna be too much we can do.
In laying out the structure of our hub, we had a number of challenges that were new and specific to co-op play. We have to assume that each player has made different progress throughout the game, playing with different partners. Starting in the neutral center of the hub was a way of making sure that they had a chance and place to coordinate. Players needed a way to agree on where to go, and a way to visualize each other's completion data. As they played, they needed concrete feedback on how much progress they had made. In seeking solutions, we felt it was important to keep the player in the game space, rather than resorting to menus and UI that would take them out of the game. Therefore, players can clearly see their status over the doors, and they navigate by walking to the course in the 3D space. GLaDOS is there to connect the experience to the single-player game, while also holding the player's hands a bit to keep the co-op goals and feedback clear.
Basically saying the co-op takes place after the campaign, which it does. For those of you who didn't know, the co-op actually, takes place like after Wheatley gets trapped in stage, after Shell leaves the facility, and Cloud resorts to the Cooperative Testing Initiative, aka the co-op mode. So. Okay.
In laying out this.
Okay, I didn't think that was gonna happen.
The visual design of the robots began with lots of concept art. The initial round of concepts explored all kinds of forms, from human to the more abstract. We found ourselves gravitating towards shapes that reminded us of the sphere and the turret in the original Portal. Whilst keeping with the established Portal design aesthetic, we were keen to create all new characters, and being a duo, it was important that they were their own separate designs, rather than identical copies of each other. Unlike, for instance, Team Fortress 2, where a clean silhouette is essential for communicating the nature of a character, we had an opportunity here to play with designs that were a bit messy, with things sticking out of them so they looked half manufactured, half improvised. Once we had agreed on rough designs in 2D, we began to build the shapes in 3D, and this is where the next level of improvisation and experimentation occurred. Usually, a model will be designed and built in 3D and then rigged for animation, but here we allowed the rigging process to inform the models. We wanted to celebrate the mechanics of robots. We allowed function to dictate form, and in terms of detail, they started to design themselves once you start thinking about motors, ball joints, actuators, and all that sort of thing. The classic duo is often made up of two contrasting body types, short and squat next to tall and wiry, and it's not hard to see Laurel and Hardy, C-3PO and R2-D2 in these characters. Even though we had the freedom to make our silhouettes a bit untidy, it was still important that they remain readable as anthropomorphic bipeds. We wanted players to feel free to make mischief for their partners, in a typically human way, but without creating any kind of gore. The robots were perfect for this.
Cool.
Our initial goal in designing the hub was to provide players with a lot of choices so that they could sample a variety of game types. The idea was that if they got stuck or needed a break, they could pick another test chamber or another mechanic to explore. In reality, this prevented us from doing sufficient training and limited the overall scope of the puzzles. With such a flat structure, it was much harder to layer old mechanics onto new ones because we couldn't guarantee that players understood what they needed to know to solve a puzzle. By going linear, we could guarantee prior knowledge and provide a much better experience, more satisfying pacing, and a story that gathered momentum over a long period of time.
Cool. Oh, there's number 4. Oh, I can go in.
If the orange bot is the odd couple's Felix, then blue is Oscar. Blue was meant to be an early and rather rough prototype robot, representing GLaDOS's first attempt at making a bipedal testing bot. Compared to the sleek lines of orange, he's much less elegant. For motion inspiration, we looked to some of our favorite real-life robots, such as the Big Dog robot from MIT and the towel-folding robot from Hitachi.
The what from the what now? Okay, I'm not going. No, I can't. Ooh. I believe the screens like scroll through a list of like recipes for the cake. I believe that's what those screens do in the store. I'm not sure. I don't know. Go over there. Get there in 1 inch.
The orange bot has been described as finicky, and you can see elements that are somewhat bird-like and even reminiscent of the Odd Couple's Felix Unger. The gotta pee idle dance was born out of the idea that current bipedal robots are constantly needing to readjust in order to find their balance. Because Orange's design is rather unstable, the motion design solution was kind of a perpetual motion needed to maintain his balance.
Cool, and just like the other one, nope, I can't go down. Okay, cool. And let's see what we got over here.
In our original robot designs and the first animation tests, we started with the premise that, being robots, their movement should have limited personality and be a bit more mechanical. The feedback of our game testers and the reaction of our fans to the trailers convinced us that a more whimsical approach to animation would lead to a better experience. So we moved away from a sterile approach and found a whole new range of possibilities as we began to explore their personalities and gestures.
Oh, the third one up there. How do I get to that though? Wait a second. How do I get up there? Oh wait, that. I want to risk it. I'm not gonna risk it. Anything in here? Yeah. We got here.
Since the co-op characters can die at any time, we needed a way to rebuild them quickly and often. Therefore, in co-op, we replaced the elevators that connected test chambers in single-player with disassembly machines. These are meant to reinforce the idea that since the robots are disposable, being destroyed is no big deal. In the robot world, it happens all the time.
In the human world, it happens once. And I think this is the end of it. Yep. And welcome back to the first main menu of the game. Alright, so we did conflict building, we did the hub. Alright, the last developer commentary for co-op is Security Room. This is also the last thing we're doing in the video. Then we'll be doing one of the chapters per video. Ooh, nice. Oh, there's so many ways to go. It's like 4-story smell. If you're wondering what that is, don't worry. I'll play that eventually. Come on. What we got going on down here? Anything? Nope. This is just a dead end. Okay, this is probably part of the map. That door is probably part of the co-op map. But they didn't fully put it. Let's go over here. Not much of anything to look at. A giant mid-fishing grill here. What is this thing? Okay. Again, that's probably another thing that had to do with the game. I don't know, I've never played the game. I've seen a playthrough of co-op mode. I don't remember too much of it though. I mean, in terms of, like, gameplay, I don't really remember anything. In terms of story and lore of co-op mode, I pretty much... Alright, let's look at this.
It
took a while for us to dial in the right approach for the co-op bot vocalizations. Initially, we recorded some in-house vocal performances and processed them heavily, with the resulting sounds being very robotic. However, as the animations being created for the bots were so broad and expressive, we soon realized we were going to need to try a different sonic approach. After a few more in-house experiments, we brought in D. Bradley Baker, who we had worked with to create the voices for some of Left 4 Dead's Special Infected. We worked with D to come up with 2 distinct vocal and character approaches for the bots and recorded a range of responses for each. Afterward, 2 of our sound designers each took on one of the voices and came up with a unique sound processing approach to create a distinct sonic personality for each bot that still allowed the energy and expression of D's performances to shine through. In the following samples, you can hear what they sounded like in D's original performance, and the result after the sound designers got through with them.
What? Okay. That was kind of strange. Ooh. I can pick up chairs! Can I throw it around the ragdoll and shit though? I can. What happens if I put it here? Okay, first off, that scared me. First off, that surprised me a little bit. That scared me a little bit. Because that was loud. Also, that makes sense. I get it. Oh, I'm pushing the dummy there from the doorway. Okay, yes, I can. I have an idea. Yeah, alright. Anyway, see what this one is.
It's important to give co-op players a way to coordinate their action. Seeing how our players naturally wanted this ability, we decided to support it with the ping timer and ended up designing some puzzles around it. Due to lag and other issues, syncing up actions over voice chat turned out to be rather difficult. Therefore, we created the countdown timer as a way for players to keep in sync. It's completely predictable. Both players see the go at the same instant, and the clocks run in sync even if they're on different systems.
Cool. What happens if I do this? Oh, that's fine. That's what is this? I get the feeling there's probably nothing over there. Ooh, nice. Yeah, there it is. I love all these things with the catwalk. It's cool. Like, I really love the maps and all of the catwalks. I really like those. Because it's fun just getting to explore the field. That's why I like Portal 2.
This puzzle requires one of Portal's trickiest logical leaps. Early playtesters often took longer than their patience would allow and were nearly ripping out their hair by the time they'd finally solved it. But almost everyone insisted that the payoff was by far their favorite moment in all of co-op. We significantly reduced the average solution time by adding a puzzle just before this where 2 cubes repeatedly collide, but this almost completely robbed the appeal from what was once a high moment. So instead we decided to make a few subtle adjustments and leave players with the responsibility to make the final leap. First, we added a puzzle 4 chambers earlier to teach players to fling by cutting their hard light bridge and falling into a surface directly below. We then subconsciously primed the thought of mid-air collision by having players repeatedly ricochet weighted spheres against a hard light bridge. Finally, we designed this room's layout, lighting, and decals so that players would see the entire space as a symmetrical whole and visualize the bot's fling path. By planting shards of the idea in their heads, we allow players to own that exciting dual collision epiphany while keeping their sanity intact.
I think we're getting close to being done with it. Because I'm doing all the co-op stuff in one video, and then the other developer commentary video will be for each one of the chapters. Total 10. Look here. That's just where it is. Oh, I'm supposed to get over there. I think. How do I get up there? I like that won't lead anywhere. Ooh, that looks cool. Okay. Oh wait, that can't. I can't reach the content. Unless I have to get closer. Unless I have to get closer. That's probably what it is. I still can't reach it. That's weird. Let me try the other. Unless that's all I can do, and I can't reach that node, then that could be the video. This should work. Right? Wait.
For a while, we were on the fence about whether to keep the Team Taunt hug in the game. Some felt it wasn't suitably robotic, while others had a concern that perhaps it showed too much emotion for these characters. But once it was animated for a trade show trailer, many of our concerns were washed away by the positive reaction of the fans. It was a huge success.
I think that is... I think that's it. I don't see a way to get up there. Yeah, I don't see a way to get up there. So, I don't know. Well, I think that, it gives me menu. I just want to check on over how long. Not too long. About throughout, like, you know, pretty much just a half hour. What if we go ahead and do Courtusy call? What if we go ahead and do chapter 1? I feel like we should. You know what? Why not? We'll do it. Let's go ahead and do chapter 1, the Courtusy call. I kind of want to do it. Let's do it. And just so you know, this is where we play through like the entire game again, just with developer commentary turned on. So, yeah, it's gonna be kind of crazy.
Good morning. You have been indefinite suspension for 50 days. In compliance with state and federal regulations, all testing candidates in the Aperture Science Extended Relaxation Center must be revived periodically for a mandatory physical and mental wellness exercise. You will hear a buzzer. When you hear the buzzer, look up at the ceiling. Good. You will hear a buzzer. When you hear the buzzer, look down at the floor. Good. This completes the gymnastic portion of your mandatory physical and mental wellness exercise. There is a framed painting on the wall. Please go stand in front of it. This is art. You will hear a buzzer. When you hear the buzzer, stare at the art. You should now feel mentally reinvigorated. If you suspect staring at art has not provided the required intellectual sustenance, reflect briefly on this classical music. Good. Now please return to your bed.
Okay. Before we do that though, let's listen to these commentaries. Hi, my name is Gabe Newell, and welcome to Portal 2. When we released the original Portal in 2007, it was an experiment to see how gamers would respond to a different kind of gameplay and storytelling experience. Portal went on to win a bunch of awards, sell many copies, and, most importantly, resonate with gamers in a way that no other Valve title has. The challenges for us in building Portal 2 were to live up to people's expectations, to take you back to the world of Chell and Aperture Science, and to surprise gamers again, not with more of the same, but with more of new. And I think it will be, mostly, a pleasant surprise. To listen to a commentary node, put your crosshair over the floating commentary symbol and press your use key. To stop a commentary node, put your crosshair over the rotating node and press the use key again. Some commentary nodes may take control of the game in order to show something to you. In these cases, simply press your use key again to stop the commentary. Please let me know what you think after you've had a chance to play Portal 2. I can be reached at gaben@valvesoftware.com. I get about 10,000 emails each time we release a game, and while I can't respond to all of them, I do read all of them. Thanks, and have fun. Alright. I know game, I know you want me to play the game, but I'm not going to do commentary first. This one.
The idea of being stuck forever in a state of stasis that looked like a crappy old motel room had been in our minds for a long time, but we weren't sure exactly how we wanted to rip you out of it. There was some debate over whether the opening sequence happened inside the player's head or not. There was an alternate opening where Aperture had hooked up all of its cryo-stored test subjects to an incredibly boring hotel room simulator, which Wheatley would then wake the player from. Eventually, this was discarded as too difficult to explain in the short time allotted, and we opted to change the hotel room to a container ride on a rail. This allowed us to show the player, rather than tell them, about how they and other test subjects have been stored, show some of the scale of the facility, and even hint at how much time has passed. We also get to gradually reveal all of this through the destruction of the container itself as it moves and bangs into things. Overall, this gives the player a much more dynamic and visceral introduction to Portal 2.
Cool. And one more thing.
The writers went back and forth over whether or not Wheatley had tried escaping with other test subjects before waking the player up. It was an interesting idea, and you can still hear remnants of this story arc in some of the dialogue. But at the end of the day, it was just too expansive a concept to sell, so it's hinted at, but not overtly mentioned until the end.
Yeah, so you may remember, in my last episode of Left with Portal 2, how Wheatley kept going on about how you weren't the first player to get the portal gun, you weren't the first to try to escape with Wheatley. So that's what this developer means. That's what he's talking about. He's basically saying that at the beginning of the game, it's a little bit mentioned that you're not the first player that Wheelie had tried to escape with. But Wheelie doesn't just say that a lot until the boss battle. Anyway, let's move on with the actual game.
Good morning. You have been in suspension for 9999999. This courtesy call.
Hello? Anyone in there?
Subject should vacate the enrichment center immediately. Any test subject
Are you
not emerging
gonna open
from
the door
suspension at this time
at any
will be
time?
assumed to have exercised his or her
Hello?
right to remain in extended relaxation. For the
Are you gonna open this door? Because it's fairly urgent.
Or concerns regarding this policy.
Well, just open the door! Ah! Ah! Oh, God. You look good. Looking good, actually. Are you okay? Are you... Don't answer that. I'm absolutely sure you're fine. There's plenty of time for you to recover. Just take it slow.
Please prepare for emergency evacuation.
Stay calm. Stay calm. Prepare. That's all I'm saying. Prepare. It's all fine. All right? Don't move. I'm going to get us out of here. Oh, you might want to hang on to something. Word of advice. Up to you. You all right down there? Can you hear me? Hello?
If you haven't seen my Let's Play on this game, the normal campaign, go check it out. I won't spoil anything.
Most test subjects do experience some cognitive deterioration after a few months in suspension. Now, you've been under for quite a lot longer, and it's not out of the question that you might have a very minor case of serious brain damage. But don't be alarmed, all right? Although if you do feel alarmed, try to hold on to that feeling, because that is the proper reaction to being told that you've got brain damage. Do you understand what I'm saying at all? Does any of this make any sense? Just tell me, just say yes.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, what you're doing there is jumping. You just jumped. But never mind. Say apple. Apple.
Apple.
Okay, you know what? That's close enough. Just hold tight.
All reactor core safeguards are now non-functional. Please prepare for reactor core meltdown.
Okay, look, I wasn't going to mention this to you, but I'm in pretty hot water here.
Are you?
How you doing down there? You still holding on?
Dang.
The reserve power ran out, so of course the whole relaxation centre stops waking up the bloody test subjects. Hold on, this is a bit tricky. And of course, nobody tells me anything. No, once you tell me, you know, about the life functions of the 10,000 bloody test subjects I'm supposed to be in charge of. Why? It's close. Can you see? Am I going to make it through? Have I got enough space? Just gotta get through here. Okay, I just gotta concentrate. And whose fault do you think it's going to be when the management comes down here and finds 10,000 flipping vegetables? Alright, so no, I hit that one.
See that right there? Yellow.
Okay, listen, we should get our story straight, alright? If anyone asks, and no one's going to ask, don't worry, but if anyone asks, tell them as far as you know, the last time you checked, everyone looked pretty much alive. Alright? Not dead.
Alright, told you.
Okay, almost there. On the other side of that wall is one of the old testing tracks. There's a piece of equipment in there that we're going to need to get out of here. I think this is a docking station. Get ready. Good news, that is not a docking station. So there's one mystery solved. I'm going to attempt a manual override on this wall. Could get a bit technical. Hold on. Almost there. Remember, you're looking for a gun that makes holes, not bullet holes. But don't worry, you'll figure it out. Seriously, do hold on this time.
I love those soundtracks. It's good.
There we go. Now, I'll be honest, you are probably in no fit state to run this particular type of cognitive gauntlet, but...
The container ride destruction sequence provided some unique technical challenges. The dynamics you experience are actually computed as two separate but nested simulations. The first is a core-scale simulation designed as a stress element analysis pass. This pass computes the overall gross motion of the container itself and computes the collisions and breakpoints based on path keyframe data and a network of constraints. As the container bumps and crashes along, the constraints start breaking and the room progressively starts to come apart. There are over 300 rigid bodies and 900 constraints in this rig, all individually configured for properties like tensile, friction, and collision response. The core simulation portrayed gross motion that captured the main dynamics of the ride, but not the fine details. The product of the core simulation was then used to deform spline-based surfaces representing the container geometry, which in turn were parents to fine debris anchored as rigid bodies. As the surface deformations increase, anchors are broken and the fine debris rigid bodies are released into the simulation. The fine simulation also includes the interior furniture and the model detailing. The two simulations were then connected using cache data and were driven together by a series of scripts. Due to the computational complexities of having two nested simulations, we had to come up with some solutions to some interesting mathematical problems. One problem was that the nested nature of the simulations resulted in some instability in the fine debris calculations due to floating point computational limits. The solution employed for this was to compute the fine debris on a stage where the root transform of the core simulation was essentially cancelled out and stored for later use. This allowed us to more accurately detect the fine interactions between the debris and the environment. Post-simulation, the root transform position and inertia were reapplied to the details. We solved the problem of trying to compute the player within this highly dynamic environment by putting them in a virtual room that has all the base shapes of the rendered container, but is simply used to compute player navigation. It's hidden somewhere else in the map. The viewpoint of the player is then parented to the core simulation transform, resulting in the final rendered frame. At the end of the ride, the player is teleported into the actual game space. The simulations were iterative, enabling us to sculpt the dynamics in parallel with gameplay design. In the final product there are over 1,200 rigid bodies, 900 constraints and 1,000 joints. With all the iterations combined, the actual runtime spent computing the simulation was 92.4875 days.
Okay. Sounds like, designing this whole container ride on rail thing. It sounds like designing, like, this whole intro was very hard, like, in terms of coding. So, the full release of Portal 1 came out in 2007. The full release of this game came out in 2011. You know what's funny in that? 7, 11. Sorry for that joke. So that would be like the span of, depending on what time of 2007 Portal 1 was released, that would be the span of, like, 4-ish years. I'm surprised it didn't take longer. Because it would seem really hard. To me, it sounds really hard.
Hello, and again, welcome to the Aperture Science Enrichment Center. We are currently experiencing technical difficulties due to circumstances of potentially apocalyptic significance beyond our control. However, thanks to emergency testing protocols, testing can continue. These pre-recorded messages will provide instructional and motivational support so that science can still be done, even in the event of environmental, social, economic, or structural collapse. The portal will open and emergency testing will begin in 3, 2, 1.
Huh? Sorry, I just have a phone for ragdolling. I'm just having a real phone for ragdolling.
Cube and button-based testing remains an important tool for science, even in a dire emergency. If cube and button-based testing caused this emergency, don't worry. The odds of this happening twice are very slim.
Look at that. I don't think they were going to commentary in there, I'll say that. Have my radio back?
Please note the incandescent particle field across the exit. This Aperture Science Material Emancipation Grill will vaporize any unauthorized equipment that passes through it.
That's like the exact thing both the GLaDOS says in 401. And let's do this. Because, yeah. Bye, radio. God, that scared me again. Alright, any commentary? Nothing? What? Alright. We're just playing through chapter 1 and then we'll be done. Yes, I know we did co-op stuff, but still, I want to do chapter 1 in this video. Okay, let's see what we got.
If you feel liquid running down your neck, relax, lie on your back, and apply immediate pressure to your temples. You are simply experiencing a rare reaction in which the material emancipation grill may have emancipated the ear tubes inside your head.
Alright, let's see what we have. There is chapter 1. They're bound. Yep, they're constant. And there's that. Looks like there's only one thing of commentary. Oh.
This room is meant to teach players the fundamentals of portals, connecting them to two places in the world. As the blue portal moves around the world, the orange stays rooted. In the original portal, this room had these portals moving by themselves on a timer. This led to most people simply staring through their orange portal, waiting for the blue one to end up in the right place. We felt that altering this to make the players decide where the portals came out was more instructive, and meant that players who already knew how to use portals could solve this puzzle both quickly and with authority.
Alright, now let's solve the chamber. Alright, here we go.
Good. Because of the technical difficulties we are currently experiencing, your test environment is unsupervised. Before re-entering a relaxation vault at the conclusion of testing, please take a moment to write down the results of your test. An Aperture Science Reintegration Associate will revive you for an interview when society has been rebuilt.
Alright. Going back through the entire game again, because we're just going through with chapter 1 today.
If the Earth is currently governed by a manner of animal king, sentient cloud, or other governing body that either refuses to or is incapable of listening to reason.
Okay. Nothing in here makes sense. Okay. Anything in here?
Hey! You made it!
Hey.
There should be a portal device on that podium over there. I can't see it though. Maybe it fell off. Do you want to go and have a quick look? Oh! Hello? Can you see the portal gun? Also, are you alive? That's important. Should have asked that first. Do you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to work on the assumption that you're still alive, and I'm just going to wait for you up ahead. Then I'll come back, and assuming I can locate your dead body, I'll bury you. Alright? Brilliant. Go team! See you in an hour, hopefully.
We thought of making a whole new character for Portal 2, but we didn't want to lose the relationship between Gladys and Chill that began in Portal 1. Once we decided to stay with Chill, we wanted to improve her look, updating her leg springs and jumpsuit to have a more functional design. At the same time, we didn't want players to not recognize her, so we kept a lot of the iconic elements like the color orange. She has folded down her jumpsuit to show she has essentially rolled up her sleeves and shed some of the Aperture label. She is awake again to test, but stronger and more determined than ever.
Anything else? Not yet, okay. This is also a good chance to go back through all the secrets that I missed before in my Let's Play. Nothing here. Okay. Yeah! I'm picking up this apple. Now just yay! I love that. Pick up a chair and it's fun. Now I'm just gonna spend the entire video doing this. Let's throw it down there. I thought I would trigger it.
Some emergency testing may require prolonged interaction with lethal military androids. Rest assured that all lethal military androids have been taught to read and provided with one copy of the Laws of Robotics to share.
Fell outside.
Good. If you feel that a lethal military android has not respected your rights as detailed in the Laws of Robotics, please note it on your self-reporting form. A future Aperture Science Entitlement Associate will initiate the appropriate grievance filing paperwork.
Checking first. Some commentary. Alright, let's move on. Going through the whole game yet. Yeah, most of it. Yeah, there may be a couple more times going. Alright, but nothing.
This next test is very dangerous. To help you remain tranquil in the face of almost certain death, smooth jazz will be deployed in 3, 2, 1.
This map was one of the first of the older Portal maps that we beat up and decayed to bind the two games together. The smooth jazz joke is probably the oldest one in the game. The team discovered through playtesting that smooth jazz was funny to all ages, genders, and cultures.
Alright. Oh my god, don't you stop.
Starting out in the ruins of the test chambers from the first Portal was our goal pretty much from day one. We wanted to give players a sense of nostalgia for what they had played, but also make it very clear that things had changed. Not only in a fictional sense, but in a graphical one as well. We needed to bridge the gap between the first game's simpler art assets and the much more complex look of Portal 2.
Let's see if I can do it. Perfect. There we go.
Great work. Because this message is pre-recorded, any observations related to your performance are speculation on our part. Please disregard any undeserved compliments.
By the way, there. Okay, nothing here, okay. If we go here, make a little rat man again. Unreached. No idea what that means. Where are we? Oh, yeah, right here. Bingo. Let's see. I'm gonna check every elevator room. I'm gonna check every elevator room. I'm gonna check like every space in the whole room. Alright.
If the Enrichment Center is currently being bombarded with fireballs, meteorites, or other objects from space, please avoid unsheltered testing areas wherever a lack of shelter from space debris does not appear to be a deliberate part of the test.
There's nothing in this chamber. Okay. What do I gotta do again? Bingo. Alright. No, I just landed on the button. Alright, wait. Next we have this.
Well done. The Enrichment Center reminds you that although circumstances may appear bleak, you are not alone. All Aperture Science personality constructs will remain functional in apocalyptic, low-power environments of as few as 1.1 volts.
That's how. Alright, what's next? Well, I'm thinking what's next, I know.
This next test applies the principles of momentum to movement through portals. If the laws of physics no longer apply in the future, God help you.
Alright. I'm gonna take that out. I don't hear you. Breathe now. Here we go. And fall dead. No. Oh. Darn. Where'd it go? Oh, it's over here. That was weird.
If you are a non-employee who has discovered this facility amid the ruins of civilization, welcome. And remember, testing is the future, and the future starts with you.
Much of the fun in Portal is based on the joy of the aha moment when you learn something new. The game needs a very specific pacing to ensure these moments. If things are too easy, then you're robbed of that moment since it feels like you didn't accomplish anything. If it's too hard, then players feel stupid instead of smart, when they finally realize that one small part of the puzzle that they were missing. Unfortunately, trying to create that delicate balance leads to a lot of shuffling of levels, and a lot of revisions and tweaks to existing levels. When we started the project, making any big structural change in a level, or the order of levels, would lead to hours or even days of busy work, trying to reconnect things and make sure they lined up again. If we ever wanted to ship something the size of Portal, with the finely tuned balance we desired, then we needed a way to be able to make the big changes to the layout of the game, without paying the cost of making everything line up again. We needed a way to bend space. We needed to think with portals. Using portals to connect different areas in the world, we could make any type of impossible space work out. You could look through a hallway into the next room, but the hallway might be on the other side of the map, and the room you were looking into might be in a completely different orientation. We could seamlessly insert an elevator, a huge expansive vista, a room that was bigger on the inside than the outside, or even create an infinite fall by connecting a shaft back into itself. Soon every connection between any space was a portal. We could even switch them on the fly. Even a simple door worked like the cartoons, just a facade painted on a wall that seamlessly opened somewhere else entirely. Once the game settled down, we were able to finalize our path and remove all the world portals. There's only one impossible space left in the whole game. See if we can figure out where it is.
Alright. Anyway, moving on, I think this is actually going to be about the last part of Chapter 1. Anyway, well, kind of.
To ensure that sufficient power remains for core testing protocols, all safety devices have been disabled. The Enrichment Center respects your right to have questions or concerns about this policy.
Yep. Oh, there's a commentary node.
Oh, brilliant! You did find a portal gun! Oh, do you know what? It just goes to show, people with brain damage are the real heroes in the end, aren't they, at the end of the day? Brave. Pop a portal on that wall behind me there, and I'll meet you on the other side of the room. Just pop a portal right behind me there.
This interaction with Wheatley was the first that we hooked up for our initial showing at E3. It demonstrated how Wheatley would be an actor in the world, and how the player would not only be interacting with him directly, but also using him to interact with the Aperture facility.
Okay, listen, let me lay something on you here, it's pretty heavy. They told me never, never, ever to disengage myself from my management rail, or I would die. But we're out of options here, so get ready to catch me, alright, on the off chance that I'm not dead the moment I pop off this thing. On 3. Ready? 1, 2, 3. That's high. It's too high, isn't it? Really? That. All right. Going on 3 just gives you too much time to think about it. Let's go on 1 this time. Okay. Ready? 1. Catch me! Catch! Ow! Ow! I am not dead. I'm not dead. I can't move though. That's the problem now. Are you still there? Could you pick me up, do you think? If you are there?
Okay.
The Wheatley model was designed as a mechanical version of the original Portal 1 personality sphere. Originally, they filled a very similar role to that in Portal 1, so we needed one base model which could hold a lot of different expressions. Experimenting with different rigging ideas, we came up with the onion skin design, where a number of spherical plates could slide around inside each other, all supported on a small motion platform mounted on a gyroscope. This meant that no matter what expression Wheatley was pulling, he always retained his spherical shape. The modelers and the animators collaborated closely on these early tests to make sure the design supported the range of expression needed to satisfy any personality sphere that got designed. Lots of ideas were thrown out, such as a small internal robot arm that Wheatley could pull out of one of his ports and pull himself around with. We were careful to make the mechanics look plausible, but we had to cheat the eyelids, since they ended up being a physical impossibility. There was no way all that geometry could fit into the space around his eye without clipping out the other side. But they were such an essential feature of the model that we resorted to crushing them up inside the eye where the player can't see them.
Alright, here we go.
Look at this! No rail to tell us where to go! Oh, this is brilliant. We can go wherever we want. Just hold on though, where are...
How do you make a giant mechanical eyeball express life and emotions, let alone give the impression that he's talking when he has no mouth? The animator's understanding of human behavior came in handy for bringing Wheatley the personality sphere to life. Talking is so much more than just moving a character's mouth. You have to use body language, head attitudes, and rhythm of movement and eye focus to indicate a character's feelings and motivations. Slow, smooth head moves, a steady gaze, and a relaxed eye aperture indicate that Wheatley is calm. Short, sharp head turns, rapid blinks, and glancing around indicate nervousness or deceit. Add a tightly constricted eye aperture and a little shiver to show fear. Tilting the body away while keeping the eye focused on the player signals an attempt at cleverness that ultimately only fools Wheatley himself. Suspicion is communicated by squinting his eyelids and handles, which function as very expressive eyebrows and cheeks. It's also fun to remind the player that Wheatley is a machine. When hacking, his eye and body segments become perfectly centered and spin mechanically, inspired by the spinning tape reels on old Univac computers. And when he wants to look far in front, he flips his eye all the way over to the other side of his head. This animation approach, combined with the writing and...
Oh crap, I forgot. My bad.
Probably ought to bring you up to speed on something right now. In order to escape, we're going to have to go through her chamber. And she will probably kill us, if she's awake. If you want to just call it quits, and we could just sit here forever. That's an option. Option A, sit here, do nothing. Option B, go through there, and if she's alive, she'll almost certainly kill us. Okay, I'm gonna lay my cards on the table. I don't want to do it. I don't want to go in there. Don't go in there. She's off. She's off. Don't panic over. She's off. All fine. On we go. There she is. What a nasty piece of...
Originally, GLaDOS was built to curl up and disguise herself as one of her rings, potentially explaining how she had survived the explosion at the end of Portal 1. But this wasn't a very dramatic reveal, so we threw it out in favor of spreading her out over a greater distance. This also made her more recognizable as GLaDOS when you initially crossed the room. The actual wake-up animation was a combination of simulated animation with a layer of hand-keyed animation over the top. A two-stage model was created for this scene. The first stage had separate pieces and connecting cables that would be drawn together by running a physics simulation so that the pieces would interact with the environment. Physics simulations were also used to break apart the objects GLaDOS crashed into while she writhes around. At the point where GLaDOS rises free of contact with the ground, she switches instantaneously to a fully connected model with controls for hand-keyed animation. From this point, the animator enhanced GLaDOS's awakening by hand, choreographing the violent chaos of her re-emerging consciousness while at the same time conveying the weight of a machine the size of an airliner. Once the hand-keyed animation was done, a final simulation pass was run to animate the cables and dangling parts of GLaDOS's body. The scene was produced very rapidly for an E3 deadline, and a traditional rig for the sequence was never fully realized. This made it difficult when we extended the sequence after E3 to add further animation, but we accomplished it by bearing in mind that GLaDOS herself is pretty broken at this point. The last part of the sequence requires the player to lose control of their view while being immobilized by a giant mechanical pincher. Once the controlled camera takes over, a careful alignment and time synchronization was required to make all the hand-animated models and camera interact with each other. Each of the stages in this wake-up scene contain a variety of processes that are very challenging to achieve live in a game engine.
Alright. Here we go. God, don't stop. I don't know what's going on.
I just looked down. I do not recommend it. I've just done it again.
Alright. I want to throw you off.
This is the main breaker room. Look for a switch that says escape pod. Alright, don't touch anything else. Not interested in anything else. Don't touch anything else. Don't even look at anything else. Just, well, obviously you've got to look at everything else to find the escape pod. But as soon as you look at something that doesn't say escape pod, well, look at something else. Look at the next thing, alright? But don't touch anything else or look at anything. Well, look at other things, but don't. You understand? Can you see it anywhere? I can't see it anywhere. Tell you what, plug me in and I'll turn the lights on. Let there be light.
Star Wars.
That's, God. It's quoting God. Oh, look at that. Turning. Ominous. But probably fine, as long as it doesn't start, moving up. Now. Escape pod. It's moving up. Okay, no, don't worry. I've got it. This should slow it down. No, makes it go faster. Uh-oh.
Power up initiated.
Okay, don't panic. Alright, stop panicking. I can still stop this.
Oh,
there's a password. Okay, it's fine. I'll just hash it. Not a problem.
There it is. Look at that.
C. Wait, did I do B? Did you have a pen? Start writing these down.
Power up complete.
I don't. Okay, listen. Alright, new plan. Act natural. Done nothing. Hello!
Oh, it's you.
You know her?
It's been a long time. How have you been? I've been really busy being dead. After you murdered me.
You did what? Oh no! No!
Okay, look. We both said a lot of things that you're going to regret. But I think we can put our differences behind us. For science. You monster. I will say, though, that since you went to all the trouble of waking me up, you must really, really love to test.
Not really.
I love it too. There's just one small thing we need to take care of first.
In fact, I just hate test. I hate test chambers. It's so complicated. It's so hard.
Here we are, the Incinerator Room. Be careful not to trip over any parts of me that didn't get completely burned when you threw them down here. The dual portal device should be around here somewhere. Once you find it, we can start testing, just like old times. There it is. Hold on. There. Good. You have a dual portal device. There should be a way back to the testing area up ahead.
Where do I go? Oh.
Once testing starts, I'm required by protocol to keep interaction with you to a minimum. Luckily, we haven't started testing yet. This will be our only chance to talk. Here, let me get that for you. Do you know the biggest lesson I learned from what you did? I discovered I have a sort of black box quick save feature. In the event of a catastrophic failure, the last 2 minutes of my life are preserved for analysis. I was able, well, forced really, to relive you killing me again and again, forever. You know, if you'd done that to somebody else, they might devote their existence to exacting revenge. Luckily, I'm a bigger person than that. I'm happy to put this all behind us and get back to work. After all, we've got a lot to do, and only 60 more years to do it. More or less. I don't have the actuarial tables in front of me.
I don't remember where to go. Oh yeah. I got that crap out. Here we go. Right here. Here we go, come.
When the player first encounters the robot arms, we wanted to convey that they were still coming back online. The idea was that GLaDOS was just waking up and hadn't yet fully regained control of them. Slowly over the course of the first few levels of this act, she gets more sure of herself and her ability to alter and mess with the lab increases. The arms presented a number of challenges, the key one being the interaction with the player. It was easy for the player to get stuck behind or inside of the models if they did something too complex. So we had to limit most of the arm action to the walls or ceilings of the test chambers, and we restricted their use on a larger scale to areas where we could be sure of the player's location.
Alright then.